So you know I'm paid in full.
Hey, what's going on? You're tapped in. It's another episode, another 180 creator interview. I'm your host, Joe Teel, and I got another great guest, Derek Murphy. What's going on?
Doing good, man. Glad to be here.
Oh, yes, sir, man. So we crossed paths. Man, it's probably been like, what? I was probably 18 or so.
Yeah.
So probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I've always been inspired by you. Always. You know, you always been doing positive stuff.
Yeah.
Books and then you're preaching and then just, just seeing you do different things. I remember like the kingdom culture and stuff and all that stuff. I just always been like, man, that's a good dude.
I appreciate that.
And so when I sat down to do these and I was like, I was writing down a list of people and I was like, man, I gotta get Derek on here.
Yeah.
And then I saw you were, because I've messaged you about this before, but I never did it on my end.
Right.
I never actually made the podcast, and now I've made the podcast, and I was like, all right, now's the time. And you said school's in it, and I was like,
yeah.
Here we go.
I'm glad to be, well, I'm not done working. Kids at home, so it's like being done.
Right,
so.
yeah. So the books, let's get into it. You said that it's your fifth book that you're on now?
It's the fifth one.
When you were little, did you ever think, when I grow up, I'm going to write a book?
You know, it's kind of crazy. I hadn't even really thought about this until you just asked that. As a kid, I would write little books and make them myself.
Really?
Write little stories and just give them to my mama. And she'd read them. She'd, oh, that's nice, and give them back to me. And I'd go on to the next one. But it was nothing that I had an aspiration to do. I never wanted to be an author. By the time I got to high school and college, I hated writing. And it was a labor. I didn't care for the process, trying to figure out what I wanted to say and then saying it the way that they wanted me to say it. It was laborious. But I got into ministry at 19. And so you start, at that point, I wasn't like writing sermons. I was just being inspired and coming up with messages to share. And that kind of jolted a creative thing in me, that there were some things that didn't really seem sermonic, like it didn't seem to fit into preaching, but it's something I needed to get out. So I just started writing it.
Right.
And at that time, blogging was a big thing.
Right.
And so I was like, well, I can try my hand at it and put some stuff online, see how people feel about it. And I got a good response from that. And from then on, it's a really good outlet for me. It's a really good creative outlet. I can think some things out, think some things through, say some things that I can't normally say, like on a Sunday morning.
Right.
And so it became a passion kind of late, like in 2015 was when I released my first book. It was a little ebook, about 40 pages, Christmas from my point of view. And that was actually taken from a sermon series where I talked about the Christmas story from different people's perspectives. So like you have Mary and Joseph and the shepherds and the angels. What would they have said about what was happening that night? So I just took it from all those different angles and got a decent response from it. And it just has gone from there.
So all the books, they're kind of life lessons type? Yeah, that type of
thing. They're kind of life lessons. One book is a leadership book. It's called What Leadership Is Not. That was the book that I never intended to write. It just kind of happened.
Right.
But even that, it's about taking, things that happen in life or things that happen in your walk or in your journey and, figuring out how to navigate whatever you're doing, whether you're being a leader or whether you're just trying to make it from day to day.
Right.
A lot of in fact, all of the things that I've written have been in that vein. And I wouldn't say it's necessarily self-help, but it's kind of like, this is what I have learned and maybe it'll help you.
Right. And that's the thing about like YouTube. And I think that's why like so many tutorial things on YouTube are so popular, because I think I saw a statistic the other day. It was like 85% of YouTube videos, and maybe not that high, somewhere between 70 and 80 are, I don't know how to do this, what's the answer to it type videos. And I think it's that same type of deal. It's like, if you can go see where somebody else has messed up at, that's a lot easier way to mess up.
100%.
I mean, to learn than to go mess up that yourself.
Right. Well, as an academic, that's kind of a sore spot for me because you can go to the internet and learn a lot, and you can learn a lot from some very brilliant people. And for some, especially like in your generation, my kids' generation, they can feel like that going to school, then it becomes obsolete. And in some ways, it actually is.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
There are careers, like who would have thought that we would have access to wide audiences through podcasting
right.
even 10 years ago? Who would have thought that would be even a career that a person could have, especially here in Texarkana? But you can go to someone who has mastered that and learn a lot from them without having to get a formal education. And I think when we understand other people's journey and get a glimpse in their, like you said, their mistakes, not having to worry about making some of those ourselves, that gives you a leg up. And that's why YouTube is a huge market. And it's almost as if we can have as many creators as you want.
Yeah.
And it not exhaust itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because people are niching down. Is it niche or niche? I always hear different things. But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I feel like because I see all these different subgroups, and it's just like there's, as long as you can find you, and then, but what the internet has done is brought people together from different parts of even just the United States. You say, well, I get on here and I just do my stuff, And in Texarkana, there may be a couple hundred of people that like, oh, we really feel Joe. But through the internet, you can go find thousands. Maybe, if you blow up 1 million people that say, oh, I think like Joe.
Yeah, and that's crazy because when you're talking about my writing, that's kind of what happened with the blogging.
Right.
I thought my friends would pick up on it, and my family, they really didn't.
No.
I got views, and because you can read your analytics and you can see how people are reading it and viewing it. I got views from every continent on the planet, and I'm not talking about just a handful.
Right.
I was seeing hundreds of views from Africa, hundreds of views from Asia, and it's like, okay, so people that I will never meet,
right,
are reading my words and possibly making life decisions based on what I'm saying. That's wild to me. Yeah. So, it's a fulfilling thing to get that out and then connect with people, even if it's through the internet.
Yeah, it's the internet's a double-edged sword. This is something we're talking. That's the positive of it, being able to connect. But I think the negative of the internet also is that you also can connect all the, I don't know what word to say, almost whack jobs. The people that are just extreme.
100%.
All the extreme people can get together, or all the, we don't,
whatever group, whatever mindset, they can find community there.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is good and bad. But then I think about another double-edged sword is like censorship, because at the same time, you could say, we're gonna, on Facebook, we're gonna stop everything that looks like this. But if you do that, that doesn't always seem to help. I read a ton of like dictator books. I'm like super into dictator books. So I'm super scared of censorship because that's a dictator play.
Absolutely.
That's one of the first things they do is, what, let's control what they're seeing.
What they're saying and what they're seeing.
Censorship is always kind of scary, where it seems like, okay, well, maybe it could be good to stop, bad stuff, but...
Yeah, but that is a double-edged sword, because then somebody will decide whatever you're doing is bad. Yeah. And you could have the purest of intentions.
Yeah, then they do then there's new things like fact-checking, but then it's like, who's fact-checking the fact-checker?
Yep. 100%. 100%.
The internet is wild because and these are what all these people like, because I listen to like Elon Musk talk for like 3.5 hours on Joe Rogan, just interested in kind of like that type stuff. Then I listen to Mark Zuckerberg talk for like 3 hours, and they're trying to, explain what they're going through. They have like 1 billion users. And so like, how do you keep things safe on the internet with 1 billion users? That's almost impossible. No. We don't want their jobs. But a lot of people will sit back and talk about them.
100%.
I'm one of. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I get mad all the time, but it's, because they've censored me for like jokes and stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I got took down off YouTube. Sorry, YouTube overlord. I call them the YouTube overlords. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to speak on that. I said something about the C word.
Oh, okay.
From the the dreaded pandemic.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Wow.
I don't even say that word no more.
Wow.
No, and it was a joke too. It was like,
Right.
I don't know. And then like I tried to...
You tried to clean it up?
I tried to fight... No, I tried to fight the case.
Oh.
I still lost.
Oh, yeah.
But anyways, to circle back to what you've got going on. Sorry,
Okay.
but that's how fast I can go left. But no, the internet is like, I mean, that's a great place. You know, you have these books. How do I get these books out? You know, the person down the road may not be as interested for whatever reason. It's hard to understand that, but that's how it is. It's just like anything. When I did music, no one, you know, there was always some stranger that liked it. Or when you do a podcast, it's that's him.
Yeah, you really don't get the support that you expect to get from your friends and family, and that's not. I've had to reconcile that that's not a bad thing. You know, I'd be in my feelings.
Do you think we have over expectations of what people around us?
100%.
I think so too.
100%. Even those that root for us, I've always kind of had a community around me, just growing up the way that I have, and even them, they would be like, "Oh, you did that, good job," and then just go on about their business. And it's like I had those high expectations, and I'd be in my feelings about it,
right?
Only to connect with someone that I had never met. And now I've gained like some real good friends out of that, some really good connections that I made out of doing the work that I do, just simply because whatever I was doing resonated with them. Even though the people that love me, and, you know, they bought books and they've come to conferences or done whatever, but it's the connections that I made because of the work that's really made it fulfilling.
Yeah. That is something you're saying that people from far away are connecting more with it. And so they're turning into friends from fans. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, it's just, we feel like I'm from here, so everybody from here should hop on the bandwagon, but that's just not how it works.
And usually the way that it works is that you'll go and do well out there, and then the people here will see.
Then they'll connect.
Oh, yeah, I've been knowing Joe since he was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's sort of the way that it works. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I've had to reconcile that.
Right.
And, you know, make my peace with the fact that my biggest support is not going to come from my hometown. It's not going to necessarily even come from family members and the folks I went to school with. But yeah.
It's like we count as, okay, so you get out and you make like some content or you put a book out. I would say, would you call a book, I guess we call everything content now because it's just like the new word that people throw around these days. But a book is content. You go out and you make this piece of, you know, it's a creation really.
Mm-hmm.
And then you say, all right, world, take it away. Mm-hmm. It's kind of scary, huh?
It is mortifying. This particular project is one I've been working on for about 4 years. And every other book project that I've done has been a matter of about 4 to 6 months. Nothing that took a whole long time. But the nature of this book, because it's about my dad, I had to sit down and talk with him. I had to kind of work some things out, figure out the directions from the conversations that we had, because I came in with an idea that I had to shift. And so this particular project has been the most from the heart. And I always write from the heart, but this one is like from the heart for real.
Yeah, there's levels to it.
It's about my dad. Right. You know what I mean? And so I've spent the last 4 years mulling through it, trying to figure it out, coming to it, walking away from it, coming back to it again. And like you said, it was nothing. And it was about 6 months ago that I really wanted to buckle down and get it done. You know, my dad he's going to be 80 on his next birthday. Wow. And I didn't want him to go on without seeing this through. And in fact, he said the other day at church, he said, I never thought that I'd live to see it done. I was like, that's kind of funny. but it started out as just an idea that now seeing people excited about it, talking about it, asking me questions about it, even being here because of it, it's very scary.
Yeah.
Very scary. Because here, you know, the concept, you wrote a book about your dad, especially if you know my dad, or if you if you're a person that was inspired by my dad, then yeah, that's a sentimental thing. But then if you actually read it, what if you don't like it? Or what if
your dad don't like it?
What if my dad don't?
Because that's the first thought I had. Because like, if I wrote a book about my dad and how my dad is, if he didn't like something in that book, I would be done for.
Right. And I even asked him, I was like, dude, I'm done with the manuscript. You want to read it before I turn it in? And he was like, nah, I'll wait. And I was like, man.
That's like added pressure.
That's added pressure. So he hadn't even read it yet.
Oh, man.
He's waiting until Father's Day.
Oh, wow. Well,
yeah. But it is absolutely scary because I put a lot of time and effort, a lot of emotions in it, because even in the book, I'm talking about his family, and some of the family that I talk about, I didn't even get to meet. They died before I was born. I struggled to remember my grandmother, but talking about her in the book, it gave me some connections to people that, for all intents and purposes, I don't know. And it was an emotional journey for me, still is. And hopefully people can feel that emotion and it brings about something positive in it as a result. So
I don't know, what you said just resonated with me for I guess because, I don't know, man, people, they're like kind of like key figures in your life. Like, okay, that's your grandma. But like if she's passed away 14 years ago, something like that. I think it's even longer than that. But like you're saying, you're trying to remember like this person that was a big deal to you, and it's like, that's sad. Yeah. It really is sad.
My grandma passed in 1988.
Right.
And I was 9 years old. And I remember a lot about my childhood at 9, but to try to remember her voice, I can't.
I still struggle to remember my mom's voice sometimes. Yeah. It's been since 2012. So
wow.
I don't know. Yeah. That's sad. That's just a tough deal, but it's a part of life. And that's just something that we have to, we just got to deal with it.
So that's why this project was important to me, because these words now will live forever.
Yeah, they'll live on through the book.
Yeah,
that's
they'll live
awesome.
forever. And the connection that I've made to my grandmother, my uncles, my aunts, because my dad was raised with 6 other kids, and there was actually a 7th one that I found out about after I was done. There was a 7th kid before my dad.
Wow.
I didn't even know, because I dedicated the book in his family's memory. And so I listed them, and so I called him to make sure I had everybody, and I had them in the right order. And he said a name that I didn't recognize. I was like, who is that? Oh, yeah, that was a sister right before me. I was like, wait a minute. who is this?
Discovered a whole new person.
Discovered a whole new person. And apparently she was a crib. He couldn't remember if she was crib death or if she was stillborn.
Oh, no.
And that was another connection that, like, even after it was done, that we made, and I learned something else about my dad that, like I said, I get emotional talking about it now, but those words and those connections are going to live on forever, and hopefully people will feel that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've learned a lot from my dad. He's a hard dude. My dad's kind of like a hard guy. Like it's hard to like get through that outer tough wall. He's an outdoor worker,
Okay.
He got a farm, and he's just that type of guy, but he kind of shows me the lessons more than he teaches me,
Okay.
But I don't know and that's when I was reading like what you said the book was about. I was like, man, like I could write about what he's taught me. It just wouldn't be. It would be like less words and be like more of like what I seen him do.
Right. Well, to be sure, I don't know if my dad and I actually sat down and had, let me show you how to do this.
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of that. My dad, he's in ministry. When I came along, he had already quit the paper mill. So he had a whole career in the paper mill. He was one of the first Black superintendents in the Coosa's history at the Ashdown Mill. So he was big boss, and he had a whole nother type of personality that I didn't really know anything about. So by the time I came along, he was in full-time ministry. And one of the hard things, and I can say this because I've said it to him, one of the hard things about having a dad that's in ministry it would seem as if he would support other kids more than he would support me. And that was like, a hard pill to swallow. So to sit down and let me show you how to do this, son, I didn't get a whole lot of that. I got a lot of lectures when I screwed up.
Yeah.
But that's not the same thing.
Definitely.
But there are some things that my dad would say, some phrases that he would say all the time. Something like, it's not bad to be broke. It's just unhandy. And so I'm like, I was like thinking about this book. Where did that come from? How did you come to that conclusion that it's not bad to be broke? Because in my mind, if I ain't got no money,
that's bad.
It's a terrible thing. He said it's just unhandy, but he said that he really learned faith watching his mother, single mother. By the time he was born, he was the last one. He was the only one at home. They didn't have no money. They were on welfare. She would clean, but she didn't really make much money. He said welfare was like $36 a month. 18 of that went to rent, and they had to live off $18 for the whole month. And I understand that it's the 50s, but still.
It's a lot different, but yeah.
It's still.
Yeah,
and he'd tell the story that one time his mother set the table. He went and looked in the kitchen. They didn't have no refrigerator. They had an ice box. And when we looked in the ice box, wasn't no food in there. Looked in the cupboard, there wasn't no food in there. He said, Mama, why you set the table? We ain't got no food. What we finna eat? And she just said, baby, the Lord will provide. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's just see. And he said that without fail, God would just provide for them because, it was in segregated South. He grew up in Spring Hill, Louisiana. The white guy up the road, my grandmother would clean his house. Mm-hmm. Oh, we slaughtered a hog. You want these chitlins? 100%.
Yes.
Take the chitlins. He said you can have half of them if you clean them all. Or if he went fishing, you can have half of them if you clean them all, type of thing. And then they would have food for the week.
Wow.
And it was like from nothing came something. And he said that we were broke. It wasn't a bad thing. It was just unhandy.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that is powerful stuff. And so I learned a lot about him and why he's the way he is. He's kind of a hard man too. I learned a lot of why he is the way that he is.
Does he save money? Because that's how my dad. My dad will not come off of it.
He is tight.
Yeah. But they come from harder times.
Yeah, he is tight. He will hold on to a dime. and
that's how my dad is.
It's just because that was the way he was brought up and making that connection to his history and how he learned that from watching his mother. It was a powerful thing, even though I never got a chance to just sit down with him before that and have that conversation. So.
That's powerful. Yeah, there's so much we can learn from our parents.
Yeah.
Stories. I still learn from stories of my mom. I'll go to Thanksgiving and hear, because that's about the only time I see her side of the family. They all spread out.
Okay.
And my mom was the only one that stayed here. Okay. And she took care of her parents that lived here in town.
Okay, so the family is from here? They just spread out? Right,
they just, every time a kid would graduate, they would go do something. Mm-hmm. And they're all real intelligent. All that side of the family, they would go, one of them's the CEO of some big company, and the other one's got some big business out in Colorado, and then one moved to Australia, and all just they just do stuff. They read a whole bunch like that. My grandparents had a library in their house.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, and my grandpa was a pharmacist, and my grandma wrote for the Texarkana Gazette.
Oh, okay.
So, how my mom ended up with my dad is a blue collar guy, just, worked every single day, but that's how we have the business and that's how we have the cows. And because my grandpa started the business in the 50s.
Right.
And so, but when I'm with their side of the family, I can still learn all these things about, I was 17 when she passed and I knew her as mom from the house, but then you hear a story of mom, out in the wild.
Right.
And you're like, oh, wow. You at 17, you don't know what your mom was like when she was 17. They don't really tell you that stuff. That's unfortunate because I feel like she could have got to tell me that later, Yeah. But to hear stories, I'm just saying that even just stories of where we come from somehow can be so powerful for us in our day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that storytelling is what makes, like you're talking about YouTube before, it makes that connection. And the lessons that we learn from those stories, no matter whose stories that they are, especially when it's somebody that we're, familiar with or
Right.
family or connected to, we learn a whole lot about people. And for the most part, we put people in two dimensions. We just know them how we know them. We don't know anything about their past. We can't predict their future. And so seeing a person in a totality is like, especially a parent,
Right.
because that's mama, that's daddy, that's all I know.
Right.
But to know that they had some screw ups in their life, that they made some bad decisions in their life, and it's like, oh, so you're not Superman, you're not Wonder Woman. So it's like it makes people instead of these superheroes that we make them out to be.
Yeah. I like that. Storytelling is powerful. Do you think that's why the Bible itself has so many stories in it?
Yeah.
That's the best way to get something across almost, is to tell a story.
Well, I've learned that the Bible has a lot of different types of writing in it, but the bulk of it is a narrative. It's just a story.
Right.
And from those stories, we learn so much about our own selves and our own lives. And I had to make a shift in my ministry because I come from a tradition that a fundamentalist, that we, what happened, what the Bible says, that happened. There's no way around it. Jonah was swallowed by a whale.
Yeah.
That's not made up. And I had to make some concessions as I grew up that everybody doesn't have to believe that it happened to understand the lesson. The lesson,
yeah.
They don't have to believe that it happened in order to understand the story. I tell a story quite often. Like I said, my background, I'm a church guy in Christ. And we have bishops. One of our bishops said one time that he was in the airport and a guy stopped him, knew who he was, and said, "Hey, Bishop, I just wanted to talk to you about the Bible. I've learned so much and I realized that the Bible is not true." Bishop said, "Oh, is that so?" He said, "Yeah. You preach about Moses, don't you?" Like, "Yeah. And you say that Pharaoh drowned in the Red Sea. And after Moses parted the water, that Pharaoh drowned in the Red Sea and all that kind of stuff. Moses didn't have to part that water. Where history says they would have crossed, the water was about 3 feet deep. There was no reason to how you going to make a wall of water on two sides if the water was only 3 feet deep?" Bishop said he got happy. Started shouting and dancing in the airport. The man was like, "Man, what's wrong with you? What you doing? Why? I just told you that the Bible is a lie. That Moses didn't have to split that water. They could have just walked through that 3 feet of water." And he said, "Well, sir, I appreciate you giving me that information, but the Bible did say that Pharaoh's army drowned in that water. And if the horse can drown in 3 feet of water, look at what God can do." And I was like, you don't have to.
Kind of flipped it. Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. You don't have to believe the story per se to get the lesson out of the story. And that's one shift that I had to make, that people can hear these Bible stories and get stuck at the unbelievability of what the Bible says.
Yeah, because there's some wild ones, like Old Testament stuff is some wild stuff. Isn't there one with like a bear? There's like a bear comes in the Old Testament. Yep. And that was one that had me like, he just like went crazy in a city or something.
Yeah. And so if we can get people past that to get the life lesson out of it,
right,
and then give them the tools to apply those lessons to their life, their lives can transform and they can still get the result that they were looking for,
right,
even without having to, believe the fantastic stuff that's in the Bible.
Yeah, because there's a lot, like the Old Testament is a lot to take it like, okay, floods and like Jericho, like they just walked around the building and it fell.
And it just fell.
So there's tons of stories like that.
Right, because I've been asked several times, you mean to tell me Noah had cockroaches on the... I don't know. I don't know. Cockroaches can survive anything. They didn't have to be on the boat. So.
Right. People go to lengths to try to... Well, I think they do this with all religions though, but...
Try to discredit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, man, because you have like mainstream science has a whole different timeline. They have their timeline that they say is this, and it's these big, huge numbers and stuff, and it's like, I don't know, to the common person, it can kind of be overwhelming. You know what I mean? Just like you look at, like they say, 13 billion years.
Yeah.
Like,
And even to a person like me, now I've been preaching since I was 19. I'm 44 now. So that's 25 years. That's 25 years?
Hold on. 19 to what?
44.
That's, wait.
It's the math.
I am not, I'm not a math guy.
I'm a history teacher, not a math teacher. But it's 25 years.
25.
Yeah, it's 25 years.
It sounds good.
I've been in ministry for 25 years.
Right.
And I've studied it back and forth. And I still get stuck at some things that in nature, things just don't add up. And another thing that I had to reconcile with that is that the people that wrote the Bible were writing without any scientific understanding. Some things that they said doesn't make sense to the scientific mind, but if you eliminate that and try to understand it from a mind that doesn't know that, then it kind of makes sense why they said what they said.
Yeah.
Some of the timelines and different things don't add up.
Right.
And I get that. And again, if we can get past believing that this is literal numbers, that the numbers that they gave in the Bible are literal numbers based on our Gregorian calendar, that 2024, is that the year? 2024 is not the same way they measured time back then. And
right.
so if we can reconcile
one of the popes is the last one that made is that the what it's called? The Gregorian calendar?
Gregorian calendar.
And that was Pope Gregory?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was when we shifted to how we do time now.
How we do time
But that
now.
was like was that the 1600, or was that even further back than that?
Man, don't give me the line.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah.
I saw somebody talking about this one time, but when they started doing the 12 months and the 365 days.
And the way that they count it.
Yeah.
And so, if we, again, can move past that and learn the life lessons out of the Bible and not treat the Bible as a historical book, even though there's history in it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's like watching a movie. If you watch The Godfather, great movie.
Yeah.
You watch the whole series of the Godfather movies. Great movie that has history in it, but you don't look to it for history.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's not the exact characters didn't do something in real life.
Exactly, and I think it's
a real story.
Absolutely. I think it's I think it's irresponsible, especially if you're a Christian, to look at the Bible for history. Look at the Bible for science. No, you're looking at the Bible for spiritual lessons that you can apply to your life practically. And the history will take care of itself. The science will take care of itself. But when it comes to relating to the God that I call mine,
right,
that's what that book is for. I'm not going to the Bible to learn the periodic table because I'm not going to find it there. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
And one would think that then the periodic table has no value. Well, that's just dumb.
Yeah,
for somebody, because I don't need the periodic table at all.
You don't ever use that in your day-to-day?
No, sir. I have never used E equal MC squared in my life at all.
Not one time.
But it's valuable.
Oh, yeah, it's
still valuable.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah.
Man, yeah, you said a lot there. That's a topic that is really fascinating. The Old Testament stuff is, oof.
And if you read it, man, it's all kinds of crazy stuff.
Oh, yeah. I went through a good bit of the Old Testament at one point.
Yeah, I was listening to a preacher today. He was talking about Ehud. He's one of the judges. I know we know about Samson, but Ehud, man, he was something else. He stabbed a guy in the gut, and the guy was bigger than me. He said the knife was enveloped in his belly. And when he pulled it out, his intestines hit the floor along with, preacher said excrement, but he boo-booed. He boo-booed on the floor.
Oh, no.
And I was like, man, that's in the Bible.
Yeah.
That's in the Bible. A whole bunch of
hardcore war times.
Hardcore. Yes.
Everything but anywhere near like David and all that stuff, like in Judges and all that stuff is hardcore. Like they was always into Philistines and all the different people around them.
It's an action book. It has have love stories in it.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of stuff happening there.
You can just read about like David is entertaining enough to like. I mean, that could be like a movie.
It should be a movie. I'm surprised it hasn't been one.
But man, I mean, they go crazy when they make movies like that. Have you seen the Moses, the Noah one?
No, I never did see that.
Oh my God, bro!
I've heard it's pretty crazy.
Dude, there was like these stone creatures that were helping them
build.
Yeah, there was like they had like these like energy in them and stuff, and then like there was like this they were like this warring tribe was like trying to stop them from,
Okay.
which I don't remember that.
Right. I don't remember.
So I
that.
think, so I don't know. They just went in on that deal. But back to, I guess, storytelling is, I mean, that's just like one of the best ways to get the point across.
Get the point across.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why Jesus used that.
That's all he did was tell stories.
That's all he
and they
did.
couldn't figure out what he was talking about half the time.
Yeah. And they would be confused. And the disciples would come to him like, man, what were you talking about?
Yeah.
And he'd explain, well, this meant that and that meant this. And then the light would come on.
Yeah.
Through the telling of the story, he gave them the tools that they needed for whatever they was coming up against.
Right. Well, he was kind of like a hippie, though, you know? Just kind of just...
100%.
And that's why, I don't know, like the way he gets described in church these days, I feel like they miss kind of like what he was about. They would sleep on the ground and they would go from town to town and they didn't have anything and they...
I'm almost of the persuasion that if Jesus walked into most churches, including mine, they would be like, who is this dude?
Yeah. It might not recognize him, huh?
What is he doing? And because, you know, the way Jesus operated, it wasn't the norm. So he was a little weird, you know, and he would just do things. You know, he walked into the temple and started turning over tables.
Right.
You know.
Well, I don't think the common person, like you ask the common person in the pew today, you ask them, okay, well, how close is Judaism and Christianity? And the common person, I would almost guarantee you, would have it way different.
Yeah.
Where, you know, most of the Old Testament is what they call their main deal.
And Jesus was a Jew.
Yeah, he was a Jew.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I don't know, like the common person doesn't deep dive into the Bible, I believe, right? And I mean,
no,
right.
Not at all.
Which is an interesting thought because, like, that's something you're basing like your life on. And then people are so casual with it.
Mm.
I've read every page of the Bible.
Right.
And where I'm at now, there's, you know, I'm in discovery mode. You know what I'm saying? I'm just learning and just, I don't know, I'm just figuring out where I'm at. So I don't even know where I'm at, you know? But I'm learning. And
I think the average Christian, especially in America, we have so much information readily available that we don't feel the need to really study anything. That's what I was talking about earlier, that academic idea.
Right.
That I can, if I need to learn something, I can go find it.
Just Google it.
I can just Google it. That's it. And I don't have to go and sit down and work things out and learn something. But the Bible requires that you sit with it and you work things out. Because through the Bible, God will say something to you in this scripture that you'll have a hard time reconciling. You have a hard time.
Because it's challenging.
That through. It's very challenging.
I don't think people like to be challenged.
And no, we don't. We just want to, well, God is love. And if God is a loving God, then how could he allow so many things? Go read that book. God allowed a whole bunch of bad stuff to happen. God even commanded a lot of bad stuff to happen. How do you reconcile that? Yeah. And it's like, if you sit with it long enough, and then, you know, there's the study of the scripture. That's the study. And then the spiritual is trying to connect with God himself and allowing him to show me who he is. That's where all of that comes alive for me. And I think that's what the church is supposed to do. The church is supposed to give you the scripture, but then introduce you to him so that you can make that connection yourself. It'd be like, okay, yeah, I know about Joe. I've seen all of his shows. Right. I follow all his podcasts. I listen to his music. I know about him, but I don't know Joe.
Right, you need to be introduced.
I need to be introduced. Somebody got to introduce you to me.
Right.
And once I get to know you, some of the things that I thought I knew, that's not the way that is at all.
Right. Oh, this is hitting like heavy with me because I listen to all these people I listen to a ton of podcasts.
Yeah.
And like when you listen to these people every week, you do start to feel like you know them. Mm-hmm. And it's like, but if I walked up to one of these dudes that I listen to every week and feel like he's one of the homies, like he will not know who I am.
Not at all. And then you will have a picture of the type of person that they are. And I've been disillusioned by meeting some people that were in some kind of way a hero for me.
Oh, and they say never meet your heroes.
Yeah, they're like, that's not how they are at all. And you can become disillusioned. But I think that's the way the Bible and Christianity works, that it is a sit and learn element to it. And then we have our own preconceived notions of who we think God is.
Right.
But until we try to get to know him for ourselves, and God will make himself real to you. He will show you things about himself through your experience. And that's how I learned about God. It wasn't through studying scripture. When I studied scripture, it made sense of what I learned.
What you learned, yeah, it kind of, okay, so I went through this connected the dots 100%, type deal. Yeah.
100%. And that was my discovery of him. And so what I try to do now is through my experience or what my dad has taught me or what I've seen my mom go through, incorporate those life lessons in my presentation of whatever it is that I feel led to preach about. And people can make a connection through me to him. I get to introduce the person in the pew to the God that I serve. Right. And that kind of takes out the whole notion of, like, at least for me. Now, I know there's a lot of talk about preachers being really controlling and doing a whole bunch of kind of stuff. That's not my personality. Right. I want to introduce you to God for yourself, and you can get to know him for yourself. You can make your own decisions about how you want to pursue that relationship.
Well, oh man, if you go back like in the ancient times, like not thousands, probably, between Jesus and now, you go back like about in the middle, and you get to where not everyone could read.
Yeah.
And you would have a pastor or a priest.
Yeah.
And they were in control of the narrative at that point. Like there was times where they 100% like almost made the rules.
Made it up. Yeah, made it up. This is what God told me to tell you. I don't operate like that.
Yeah.
The way that I operate, I wanna give you what the Bible says. And I believe that the Bible is a very spiritual book, so that even when I tell you what it says, if I come back and read it, it can tell me something else.
Right.
Or if you go back and read it, it can tell you something else. Mm-hmm. But I want to give you what the Bible says in that moment, what it means to me in that moment. And then you take it and you run with it. You take it and you figure out what that means for you. Because I can't make it mean anything for you.
Right.
I'm telling you what it means to me.
It takes some work in the pew.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's got to be the same way as a teacher, huh? Like when you're teaching these kids, I mean, you give the presentation.
Mm-hmm. It's up to you to figure out how to work it.
Right.
And so that's the way that I try to present the gospel. That's the way I try to present God to people. I'm gonna show you what I've learned, and you take that and apply it if you can. If you can't, hopefully come back next week, I'll do a better job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I want to empower you to make those decisions for yourself. I'm not going to tell you, folks like to argue about tithing, that 10%. I believe it works because it worked for me.
Right.
But I can count your pockets.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so it's like, this is what I believe the Bible says. You take that and you work that out yourself.
Right.
Another area is sex. And so the church I pastor, my dad, he retired as the pastor and he stayed. So I'm pastoring my daddy, my mama.
Oh, wow.
And so when it comes time to talk about sex, I'm very uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah. That's not,
that's not fun. And it's a whole bunch of older people that watch me grow up.
Yeah.
Not fun at all.
No.
But the way I teach about sex is not the way that they taught about sex. It was to shake a finger in your face. You better not ever do it until you're married. And if you get married, you ain't even supposed to enjoy it. Type of thing. You know what I mean?
That's wild.
That's crazy.
Wild.
And that's how I teach it.
Yeah.
And I teach that sex complicates things. And the first time one of the older saints heard that, they were like, you mess it up. I was like, it's just the reality. Folks out here having sex. And they know that if they have sex with somebody, that's going to complicate the relationship they have with whoever they just had sex with.
Yeah.
If they're trying to have a relationship with them.
Yeah.
So,
Which is an interesting topic.
Yeah.
Because we live in a hookup era.
Yeah.
In a hookup era for sure. And it's like, if there is something more spiritual to it, then people are like mixing spirits and then going the other way.
And don't even realize
which is crazy.
And won't even feel the effects of it until they're trying to connect with people.
Oh, yeah, and it may affect when they do need it to feel it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I teach, that sex complicates things if you're trying to make a connection. If it's just physical, get it in. But you got to keep that up. Yeah. But you're gonna come to a place where it ain't doing for you.
We've talked about this before, me and my buddy. I try to teach my younger buddy, but he's growing up, and then you just have to let him grow up. You know.
Yeah, they got experience for themselves.
When I would give him advice, I say, man, like you have to. Like first, like a lot of guys don't like, and I don't know about girls, but I know from guys, a lot of time guys will be in relationships and they don't even like this woman. Yeah. And they're there
100%.
And they'll go through whatever they got to go through for sex.
Yes.
That's just 100%. There's guys out there that are 100% there for that. Yep. But the problem with that is, like you say, they could get sick, they could age, the connection could go away. Mm-hmm. Then you realize, oh, I'm with this person and I don't really like this person. Yeah. And so I always told my buddy, I'm like, man, you got to find someone you can be friends with.
That's right.
You got to find someone that's going to be your partner. Like more than just we're dating, but like somebody's going to have your back. They don't necessarily have to like everything you like, but there's like this compatibility, that you got to take into consideration. Like, can you live with this person? Because when you live with people, that's different, and just all these other things. It's like, when I know for sure that there's a guy out there right now, probably somebody listening, just saying, shoot, I'm just hanging in there because she let me, Yeah.
A lot of the things that we set as criteria for somebody that we want to date are not the things that we need for the long term. And we have to show younger people that what you have going on right now is not going to be what you're going to have going on later. You got to kind of think a little further ahead. And she might be fine now, but what if she don't be later? Right. She might be, forgive me, she might be a freak now. Oh. But then she might
calm down. She might calm down. Her knees might give out. Oh, sorry. Forgive me.
No, I love it. And so we have to think beyond that. Right. To make those type of decisions about people we want to connect with and spend long-term relationships in. Definitely. My parents have been married 57 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah, I think it's 57 years. It's a long time.
And I'm only like, man, do you ever struggle with years? Like, I know, like, so how old are you now?
44.
44. Which I'm 29, and I just can't, like, when you say 57 years, that's almost twice as long as I've been alive. Yeah. So it's like, I can't even understand. Like, I can't really understand, like, what that means. Right. Like, they've been married twice as long as I've been alive.
Right. And I've been married, it'll be 23 years in September. And we have been through, that's a long time too. Yeah. We've been through a lot in that 23 years that I can understand the 50 year. Mm-hmm. Because you don't get to the 20, you don't get to the 50 year without the 20 year. Right. So what it took for me to get here, it's going to take that and more to get there. And if I want to spend the rest of my life with this woman, it's not going to be seeing eye to eye all the time. Right. Because we didn't see eye to eye before we got married. Before we got married all the time. And you have to make those types of decisions. You can't make those types of decisions in your pants.
Yeah, for sure.
Because once that's done, somebody got to cook, somebody got to clean, somebody got to pay bills.
Yeah, and then you go through these phases. Yeah. And like we got married in 2016. Mm-hmm. So we've been together for a while, especially for young people. They don't make it like that no more, hardly. Right. So then, it was so fun at the beginning, especially we didn't have no kids. Mm-hmm. We waited a long time to have kids. We were married from 2016. We didn't have kids until 2020. Okay. So it was like 4 years we just ran around. Yeah. Just did whatever we wanted together.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah, it was awesome. But then we had our first kid, and then we're like, oh, then everything gets serious. And then you have to like relearn your partner. Then you have the second kid, and then you're like, because we're done after 2 though. But, but the second kid, then you just like, it was like doing a math test, and then they give you a harder math test right after it.
Yeah. And let me tell you this. So then after the kids, when the kids get a little older and y'all start looking toward the kids not being there, there's going to be changes again. You have to learn each other again. And one of the things that I say, my wife, she says it like she made it up, but I think I kind of coined it. But when you get married or when you have a long-term relationship, you're committing to the person that they're going to become.
Right.
Too many times we're just committing to the person in front of us. And that's not going to be the same person that's going to be there 7 years from now. You're going to go through some things that's going to change who you are fundamentally down to your core, and you will be a totally different person. Now I got to learn you again. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm just thinking personally, like me, how much I've changed for better or worse.
Yeah.
You know, you think you're doing, I think sometimes we tend to think, okay, well, it's been time passing, so I must be progressing.
Yeah.
But that ain't always true.
That's not always true.
You know, just because it's further along doesn't mean it's progressing. So I think of ways I've gone backwards and ways I've gone forward.
Wow. Yeah,
and
that's deep.
And that she's like she still has to like me, and I'm not.
Yeah.
That she's a lot different.
Yeah. Yeah. And my wife was talking about this with some friends just yesterday, that the people that we become is large in part to do with the people that we choose to be with. You know what I mean? And so to a degree, whatever I am, you help make the monster. You know what I mean? And that's why if you're looking for a lifelong commitment, you take responsibility for that person that you're with. That's why you share a name, whatever that name is because you take responsibility for that person, and no longer can you blame the world or even them for what they are because you played a part in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And as a man, you're like...
Especially as a man.
It's like, I need to take care of... But now I'm sure some lady has messed up and a man has done like everything right in some situation.
In some situation,
and that's just what it is. But there is a responsibility on us to like, okay, you got to fix things fast. I think that's huge, fixing things before they, because the longer, oh my, then like unsaid expectations. That's crazy.
Yeah.
We could go a month. We can go a month where me and her have like this expectation of each other, and neither one of us hitting it, and we're just mad as hell. But nobody says anything. Nobody says nothing about it. And then one day it just explodes. Yeah. And I've been for a month. I've been and I've been for a month, and then you think like, well, we never said nothing.
Right. Yeah. you were supposed to know.
You were supposed to know. Yeah. We think like because and to an extent, I do think that I don't know. Like, man, I don't know if it's some kind of like. I do think you can get on like the same kind of wavelength with a person. Yeah, but nobody's a mind reader. But you can't read minds. Yeah. So then sometimes you be like, oh, we're so locked in, blah, blah, blah. She's supposed to know this, but no, she ain't.
Well, so here's the thing about that. So you're locked in for a moment and you feel it. You know it. Oh, things are good. But then that lock comes just slightly off. And when it gets just slightly off, that's enough to cause that tension that, okay, now I got this expectation because now I've made whatever this shift is, I've made it, and they're with me, but they're not. And now you have to articulate the things that you need as opposed to just expecting it and it just happens.
So hard. Like these are fun things to sit around and talk about in front of a microphone. Very hard. Very hard
to live it out. Yeah.
It's
hard to live it out. And I think if you take those expectations of roses and lilies all the time and picnics in the park, that's not how relationships work.
No.
You get those every now and then. The day-to-day and the mundane, you gotta find you somebody that you can be bored with. Yeah. Because if we don't have 2020 taught us that.
Yeah, COVID.
COVID taught us
we
that.
were talking about this the other day. There was some. I was telling. So I said, I guarantee you, there's some man that got laid off from work, and he went home and hung out with his wife for 3 weeks straight and left.
Didn't come back. Went to get the milk.
He went to the milk
come
store.
Back here.
Yeah. Because he realized, oh my gosh,
I don't like this one.
Yeah, I've been at work.
Yeah, I've been at work. And when I'm not at work, I go hang out with the fellas or I go to the game. I don't come to the house like that. And when I see her, it's great while it's great. But you sit with a woman for a long time, you better like her. You better like her.
Oh, it's so hard. Yeah. It's so hard.
And to be sure, I love and like my wife.
Oh, yeah, same here.
I love and like my wife.
Yeah, I love my wife. It's just these... I don't know, they romanticize stuff and you watch all these movies and stuff. Every time I watch a romantic comedy, they end up together at the end. In my head, I'm like, I want to see 5 years from now, realistically, not no flash forward where everybody's in their Christmas pajamas and everything is, oh, well, they have a kid now. Oh, it's so sweet. No,
it's a roller coaster, man.
It really is. So do you think, so we have like social media. We have all these ways to communicate with more people now than ever. You know, the second something goes wrong, doesn't it seem like nowadays it's easier to just go to a different direction? Do you think that's why people don't stay together now?
I think it's part of it but then again, that's always been. Social media has just really amplified it.
Right.
It may have expedited it, sped it up for some people. But one thing that we do now that people didn't do in the past was that we let everybody into our...
Oh, you know posting too much.
We post too much. And if you're mad, you post about it and you have to take it down. But no, I saw it.
Yeah.
I saw it. We had a whole group chat about it.
Yeah, somebody's talking about you too.
Yeah, they know all about it. And that's
But it's your fault.
And it's your fault.
It is your fault.
And that's one thing that like our parents didn't have to deal with. If we were mad at each other, people might have felt it. People might even saw you arguing, but they didn't really know. But now you can put all of your mess on the...
We don't never fight on the internet. Oh my God, we don't do that. Me and my wife, thank God, thank you, Whitney. We don't do that.
No.
We don't do that because that's just like, first of all, they don't need to know that.
No, it's nobody's business.
Yeah. And if we fight, it needs to be in the correct setting. Too.
I've always had this policy, like with family, like if family come to me and say, they fighting with their spouse, I got a cousin that's mad at her husband, and she mad at her husband, you come tell me about it. I'm not about to hate your husband because you're going to be back with him.
Probably.
And I'm going to be mad at both of y'all.
Yep.
Because now I'm mad at him for something that y'all could have just left me out of.
Right.
And that's just the attitude that I take with everything. You can't put that kind of stuff out and not expect for it to come back and bite you. And so, yeah, people are probably leaving each other easier now because now I gotta save my face.
Yeah.
And
which when you publicly, it's hard to burn a bridge and then try to drive over it.
Ooh, yes, sir. Especially with everybody watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got a crowd of people.
Because I have some friends that have been through that very public mess up and talked about it on the internet, and then they took it down. But everybody's still talking about it.
Yeah.
Everybody still remember.
Yeah, you remember it right now.
Yeah, I remember it right now. Like it was yesterday. And my gossip partner is my wife. We'll just sit and talk about it. Did you see what happened? We ain't going to forget. And the internet won't forget.
Yeah.
It'll just be there forever, so.
That's right. When people tell me don't tell nobody, I just immediately tell them, I say, okay, I will tell my wife.
Yeah, you got to know I'm telling my wife.
But I won't tell nobody else.
Right, yeah.
But I will tell her.
And let me tell you, that's becoming a pastor, that was like the hardest thing because there's some things I can't tell my wife.
Right, okay, yeah.
So there's some things, some conversations, so I don't want anybody that may come to my church.
Oh, yeah, obviously, yeah.
To think that I'm going to tell my wife everything. But most of the time, if you're just having a casual conversation with me, my wife going to know the exact same thing we talked about.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But that's your partner.
Yeah, that's my partner.
We got into it, didn't we?
Yeah.
Let's go to the school thing. Because I like to think about how things are changing now. We talk on here. I talk a lot about AI. I talk a lot about things like that. So from your opinion, how long you've been in the school?
I've been in education for 10 years.
10 years. Okay, that's a long time. So we talked about people having knowledge at their fingertips now. Whereas when you were a kid, you probably couldn't just get the answer to something right off the rip, huh? So what do you think that does to a kid? Like, so you have this problem. You have some question, how old do possums live? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You have to go find this answer.
Right.
But these new kids can just Google it. They don't even have to talk to type no more. They could just hit a button and say, or even they don't even have to hit a button no more. They say, "Hey Siri, how old do possums live?"
Right.
And they have the answer.
Right.
Do you think instant knowledge do you think it's an advantage, or do you think it was better to have to go find answers?
Very interesting question. I like that question. I think it's a little bit of both. So the internet can give you all sorts of answers. And the bulk of those answers can be, I don't want to say incorrect, but a lot of those answers can be misleading. Or a lot of those answers can have just enough truth that the rest of it sounds good, but it's not real. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, even you look down the feed on Facebook, you look at the stuff that Diddy going through, and it's article after article after article about truths about Diddy that you can know just enough truth to believe a lie.
Right.
And I think that's the problem with the internet and the current learning generation, is that they don't know enough to be able to figure out what's true and what's not, or even what's worth exploring. Because there's some things that if you know enough, and there's no need of me diving deep into that. That's way off. And the internet only really works if you have a baseline knowledge. And one of the biggest arguments that I have all the time with grown folks at the big ages of 40s and 50s is like, why you history? I'm a history teacher.
Right.
You teaching history, and what they need to know that for? How's learning history gonna help them?
Crazy important.
It's crazy
My
important.
bad, but I love history.
Yeah.
But here's the regular person says, why should I know history?
If you don't love history, it's boring. It happened. It's not gonna change. But here's the thing: the more you know, the more you learn. History does change. It changes every day.
And it repeats itself.
And then it repeats itself. And so you have to learn from, if you have a baseline knowledge of something, you can build on that knowledge. And what I've discovered, the more education I get, and this is what I learned academically, and this is what I learned in my practical life. The more education that I get, it's not that I learn more, it's the more that I learn, it's the more that I realize what I don't know. And that there is so much to explore in the world. But if I don't have the baseline of some sort of truth, some sort of consistency, that what I learn then is obsolete.
Right.
It doesn't serve me if I don't know how to apply it, how to use it, how it fits into my life, how it fits in the world. Man, I saw a podcast, I want to say it was Fresh and Fit. I didn't mean to call it a name.
I know, they good.
But the guy, one of them was like, so who came up with 2 plus 2 equals 4? And the guest was like, he was drinking something, he stopped. He was like, wait, repeat that? Yeah, somebody decided that 2 plus 2 equals 4. How did they come to that decision? He was like, no, 2 plus 2 just is 4.
Right, yeah.
And if you think that somebody just made that up, you're crazy. And if you think that, then what basis do you have of reality in the world? And so having education to
just
some
regular
degree,
math as a baseline.
Right. Then you can build on that to understand how that expression can be different things at different times. But 2 plus 2 just is 4.
Right.
Just like learning English. I had one friend that say, how did they decide what's a verb and what's a noun? How did they just figure that? How they decide that? And I was like, we talk and it just is what it is.
Right.
And I love.
Which language is cool. Like the history of language is way cooler than English class.
Sir, I geek out on this type of stuff.
Yeah.
This is a podcast I listen to called Lexicon Valley, where he talks about etymology and where words come from and how words have changed.
Yeah, that's so much cooler than which word is the predicate on an English test.
I hate that.
I don't know that.
But you talk about, you bring a historical aspect and how people speak, how people write, and you connect those dots and as a baseline to build on. I think that's why education is very important. Having a high school education that's broad enough that you can do anything with, even learning physics, even learning trigonometry, stuff that you don't use in your everyday life.
Right.
A lot of that stuff comes in handy.
You're saying because you're building this baseline.
You're building on
that makes a lot of sense, and I have never heard it explained like that.
Yeah.
Because you will get the blue collar guy that'll come in here and say, I ain't used math since
Right.
You know,
And then they're actually using it
with
what
like
they're doing.
tape measures and stuff. They're reading
Absolutely.
fractions and
Absolutely. And if you don't understand that baseline to build upon,
right.
It's very, very little that you can do and very few places that you can go without that baseline.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. So that's why you think the common job is like, hey, you need to have a high school diploma at least, huh? Because that just says you do have this baseline.
Right. And then the other part of education is that, can you complete something?
Yeah.
Can you just see something
can you
through?
Finish it? Yeah.
Can you finish? Or can you follow instructions?
Right.
And that's huge because, man, I
have a question if I don't want to cut you off, but along the lines of this, because you work at a school, I'm really curious to the answer. And one thing that it was hard for me to be at school all day.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard for me to be in class.
Mm-hmm.
I would get in trouble. Sometimes I wasn't just up to these heinous crimes that were getting me in trouble. Sometimes I really was just like, we can't socialize. Like we got the hardcore learn for 8 hours, you know, and maybe lunch.
Yeah, yeah.
And then like you get to high school, there is no recess, you know. And so do kids need to be able to sit in this room for 8 hours?
No. 100% no. So there has been a shift. And when I got into education, I did kind of have an expectation of, you know, sit down, shut up. I'm going to talk to you for an hour, you know, because I taught 8th grade social studies and class would be 55 minutes. I'm going to talk to you for 55 minutes. And I had to make the adjustment that, okay, me, I don't even have that kind of attention span.
For real?
Even if it's something that I'm interested in. And so I have to figure out a way to engage them, then get them talking. So no, I don't believe that the sit down, shut up is effective. And so that's why, you know, even historically, they worked in the recess, they worked in the activity classes. That's why in junior high, you get a choice of some of the things that you're going to do because you want to be interested in what you're learning. And then you want to learn some things outside of the reading, writing, and arithmetic, science, and history. You know, you want to learn some things outside of that. So, you know, you go to a tech class, you go to an apps class, you go to technology class.
Yeah, automotive wood shop,
whatever.
Ag.
And all that. You learn some other stuff and you get a wider base of knowledge. But no, that's sitting down for 8 hours. No, that's not a reasonable expectation for anybody.
Yeah, well, so if you look at me, like, let's say this does become successful, like the podcast, this is the type of stuff that I would get in trouble for. You know, just wanting to have conversations with people. I just want to talk.
Yeah.
You know, so like, if a teacher said, well, Joe just doesn't know how to shut up, he won't never be nothing in life, they would miss like
100%.
Yeah.
So the other end of that is that educators have got to learn that kids are just little humans that have thoughts and expressions, that have theories and opinions that they need to get out.
Right.
And you can't be intimidated or afraid of what they have to say. So I always try to give my students the platform to say what they need to say. But at the end of the day, okay, this is what I got to teach you.
Yeah.
And I would tell them that. It's like, okay, that's very interesting, but I got to get back to this is what I got to teach you so that you can pass that test at the end of the year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is what you got to know for that test. It doesn't necessarily have to be what you want to know for the rest of your life, but we can have those conversations. And if you want to talk about it more, see me after class.
Yeah.
Nobody would want to come see me after class. But
well, let's talk about the Aztecs.
right.
It's 3:45.
Right. I never got that. But they have opinions and thoughts that they want to just get out. Things that they've heard, things they want to see if it's true, things that they want to see what you think about it. And that's conversations worth having because then it will engage them in the content that you have to teach them. That then on the other end of that, kids have to understand, students have to understand that I'm in this class, whether I want to be or not.
Because it's your job too.
It's my job. I got to be in this class and I got to learn what they're going to teach me.
Do you agree with all the history curriculum that you teach?
No.
It just seems like it's That's a bit that I've studied into.
Yeah.
It seems like maybe not everything is.
Everything is not great.
Because there's like agendas and there's like part of like, okay, well, the state wants to teach this way and that, but that may not be exactly what.
There is some propaganda in our history curriculum.
How do you deal with that?
I'm honest. So I won't lead with it, but if a kid asks me a question, I'm not going to shy away from it. I will tell them the absolute truth and then bring it back to the fact that this is what you need to know.
Right.
You know what I mean? Especially when you're talking about American history.
Can you give me an example? Or is that too treacherous?
When we started talking about, let's say, Abraham Lincoln and him freeing the slaves.
Right.
So there is a faction that teaches that Abraham Lincoln was a racist. I don't think he was. Historically, I don't think that bears out.
From what I learned, I don't think so.
No, but there is a lot of evidence that stated or that states and proves that he wasn't interested in freeing the slaves at all. He was kind of
forced into it.
He was forced into it.
Right.
He wanted to preserve the Union. And in order to preserve the Union, that was what he had to do for a little bit of academic, political expedition.
Right.
Just to get to the end goal faster.
Goal, yeah.
Just so that we can get there faster. I'm going to free the slaves. And if he could have done it without freeing the slaves, he 100% would have.
Yeah.
And his whole thing is that he didn't want slavery to expand. And those Southern plantation owners were trying to expand it as the country was growing.
Yeah, because every time a new state got in, you would decide if you were this way or that way, right?
That's right. And they were lobbying much how lobbyists work in Washington today.
Now, yeah.
They were lobbying for states who wouldn't even have benefited from the slave system to become slave states.
To keep the numbers,
To keep the numbers.
Right.
And so to have political power.
Most of through the Civil War, wasn't it about even? Because every time one would add a state, another one would add a state, right?
Yep. And that was an issue. And even the issue of slavery. I know that there's a lot of people that don't want that taught in public schools, but it's part of our history.
It happened.
And it's a very important part of our history because it was included in the conversation, even in the writing of the Constitution. You know, that 3/5 compromise, that was about slavery, and it's in the Constitution. You can go up there to the Constitution and read it. It's right there. And so we can't skip over that. And when I say that the biggest issue in American history that just kept getting kicked down the road was slavery and what to do with these black folk, that was it. From, 1789 all the way up to today, even to some degree. How are we going to deal with these black folk? It's been a major issue in American history, and we just can't ignore that.
Right.
So I would teach what the curriculum said to teach.
What do they say?
As far as what?
As far as Abraham Lincoln, they just say he thought it was wrong and he had to fix it.
The way the narrative is kind of told, because he did speak out against slavery as he was running for state representative.
So a political speech.
Political speeches. He was against slavery spreading.
Yeah.
Not necessarily slavery itself.
There's a lot of people that have a lot of beliefs like that. Like, as long as it stay over there.
As long as it don't bother me, it's cool.
I mean,
and that was sort of the attitude that he had. He didn't want it to spread because it affected labor in the North.
Right.
You couldn't do labor in the North as the South was doing labor.
Yeah, because the South was built, their whole and their whole infrastructure, like how stuff worked, was built through that. And that was part of the reason why they didn't want to change it up, because that was how America operated in the South.
That's right.
But the Union had their own way of doing it, and it was.
So one of the myths that I would dispel is the cycle of slavery and how all of America benefited from it. It wasn't just the South. The whole economic system was built on it. Think about it. You got this factory in the North that's spinning cotton to make textiles. Where do you think they're buying that cotton from?
Yeah.
Why do you think they got the cotton at such a good price?
Yeah.
So that they can sell it at a higher profit margin.
Yeah, because the person is not making anything
exactly
to work it. Yeah.
So you can be in the North and say that slavery is wrong, But you don't want slavery to change.
Stop, because that's how it works.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so those systems that are in place, I'm still benefiting from it. So I can stand on a moral high ground and say that
slavery's wrong. I'm from the North.
But as soon as it's time to do something about it, nobody wanted that war.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted it.
That war is crazy. But it's good. I mean, it is good that it happened, I guess, that because I don't guess we could have came up with this. Right. I mean, they probably could have, but I just don't. I mean, do you think the Civil War, I mean, you think they could have found a solution without it being a civil war that actually everybody was cool with?
No, because you get in my pocket, I got to fight you.
Yeah, and that's how everybody
that's
works.
How it is. That's how it is right now. You get in my pocket, I got to fight you. And most of our political arguments today, if you boil it down, it's
somebody's something about money. Yeah.
Isn't
that sad?
Yeah.
That's what I'm learning while I study history more. Like, if I just had this boom, like, to get back into this stuff, I realized that I'd messed around in school, like, and just maybe didn't have the best baseline, as you were saying earlier. And I just got, like, reignited to, like, let's learn some stuff. Let's figure out kind of what's going on. So I just started deep diving into all this stuff. But
as a teacher, I wanted to make sure that I made it interesting. I made it engaging. And I've had a few kids to come back and tell me that I was their favorite teacher. So my first 8th grade class, they're graduating this year. And I ran into one of my students just by happenstance taking her graduation pictures up at the college with her mom. And she looked up at me. I looked down at her. And we had a moment. We were both kind of in tears because I was hard on her.
Yeah.
She was lazy. She didn't really want to do the work, but I was hard on her because I saw a lot of potential. And now she's going to go to college for social sciences.
Wow.
And I'm like, girl, that's huge.
Yeah.
And she told me that, well, Miss Murphy, you ended up being one of my favorite. You are my favorite teacher. And so having a teacher that cares about kids, having a teacher that wants to engage them and not just give them a whole bunch of facts.
Yeah.
That's very important. And so now that I'm on the other end of that as an administrator, I want to try to make sure to find teachers that have that kind of passion for the students so that you can ignite that in them, even when they don't want it, or care about it. It's going to stick with them and it'll come back at the right time.
Yeah, I have to get taught that way.
Yeah.
I can't do like a boring class. No. I will not retain none of the information. I'll get kicked out for talking.
Right. And a lot of the reason why so many teachers are leaving the profession in droves is because so many teachers say, if I could just teach, I would be fine. If I could just teach. But they have so many other things that put on their plate from the state, from even the federal government. You can blame districts, but at the end of the day, that comes down from people who don't have anything to do with education.
Yeah.
People that are not educators, making rules for the people that do it every day.
And you think it's money, it's numbers, it's all that stuff.
Yeah, 100% money. Somebody's getting paid for those books. Somebody's getting paid for that curriculum. Somebody's getting paid for the way the system is. Somebody's making money off of that.
Yeah.
And if you want to change it, you get in somebody's pocket and they're going to want to fight you.
Yep, and that's...
Yeah.
We could just always go back to that, huh?
Yeah.
You get in somebody's pockets, you got to fight about it. That's just...
Because you get in mine, I'm going to have to fight you. And I don't even know if I can fight.
Nobody's been in your pockets recently, huh?
Yeah, no, you stay out my pocket.
Oh, man, all the world. So I see people misquote the Bible verse all the time. They say money's the root of all evil, but it's the love of money.
The love of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think that is like the legit, like main?
Yeah.
So what did they beef about before money? Like, I know because they was always beefing.
Well, so money is nothing but currency.
Right, currency.
Whatever that currency is, whether it be food,
resources, land,
power, that all of that is currency, and that's what people have always fought for. Even the love of a woman. You know what I mean? That's currency. Think about it. You got a fine woman on your arm. That's currency to some other dude that might have wanted her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Now you got to fight.
You're in my pockets. Now we got to fight.
Now you got to fight. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
100%.
Do you see a world on Earth? You see where we finally as humans like get over war, or do you think it's just something that will always happen?
No, and that's an existential question, philosophical question that can people empathize and be good? I think everybody, for the most part, has that ability, unless you have a mental illness that prevents you from having that. So that's one.
Do you think our leaders have mental illnesses?
Some do.
Yeah.
100%. Some do.
I think so too.
I think every president since, well, maybe every president has had to have some level
what
of
president were you
narcissism.
going to say? I'm just very curious.
No, I was thinking like since the 1900s when as the presidents have become more powerful.
Powerful, yeah.
But I think every president had to have some level of narcissism.
Yeah.
You can't lead at that level.
Once we came out of World War II, every president after that we were sitting pretty at that point.
Yeah, 100%. And think about it. The presidents, every president, let's say since Kennedy, have been millionaires.
You see what they did to Kennedy.
And you see what they did to Kennedy.
So what does the school say about that? Hold on, let me take my time before I start bringing up.
Say about Kennedy?
Yeah, okay. Well, I got somebody coming at 8. And I got to go, but I just want to hear, what does the school teach you about?
So I didn't teach that curriculum, but what I could say about what is taught about that era, Kennedy is held up as a hero. He's held up almost as equal to like a founding father. He is a very important president, and I don't take any of that away from him. He was a very flawed man who made a lot of mistakes. Politically. And even he siding with the civil rights movement was political expediency. He had some things that he needed done. He couldn't get it done without the black vote. And he understood that. And if he could have gone through all of that without dealing with the segregated South, he would have. But when people are getting hosed on TV, for the whole world to see, I can't ignore that. So
that messes up the message.
Yeah, it messes up the message and what America is supposed to be. But yeah, Kennedy is held up as a hero, and I think.
And they say the guy that shot him killed him. Is that what the books say?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I've seen JFK, so I understand the conspiracy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was working alone. I don't think we have enough evidence. And even after they unsealed those documents, it's not enough in that to come to a absolute
There's somebody, I think it was Joe Rogan said that Trump said if they showed the documents to that, like the world would unravel.
Perhaps.
So
and I mean,
that may just be something we never hear about.
They've opened some.
Yeah.
After 50 years, they opened some.
Yeah. But I don't think they put the full deal out. And I think that was what Trump said. If we showed the world what they showed me,
right,
it would just...
It might unravel the world. And it might. And I think that's another thing that... So one thing that I've learned from just simply watching movies, there's always something happening that you can't account for. No matter how good your plan is, no matter how you've worked things out, there's always something happening in a scene that you're not in that's going to affect whatever it is that you're doing. You could have the perfect plan. You can have all of the right people in place. You can have the right intentions and motives. There's something happening somewhere that's going to put a monkey wrench in what you're doing. And I think that's the reason why we will always have war. We will always have poor. The poor with us. Jesus said that poor be with you always.
Yeah, they're not going away.
You're going to always have hunger. You're going to.
I said they're like disease. I'm not poor. You'll always have them.
Yeah. So So because there's always going to be something happening that doesn't include me, but it's going to affect me.
Right.
And so people are out here doing the best that they can, and it takes empathy. Understanding that everybody's doing the best that they can.
Yeah.
And sometimes empathy is not enough, especially when whatever you're doing is affecting me. That's deep.
I could talk to you for hours, dude. I want to have you back on. We can just talk more like history stuff because I've been having a good time, dude.
Yeah.
But I got something I got to shoot after this. But plug the book.
Okay.
The
book, it's called The Real McCoy. My father's name is McCoy Murphy Jr. And in the book, I take 6 different phrases that he says all the time and dive deep into where those phrases come from. And if they didn't come from a particular place, how did he come to that conclusion? And then kind of show how I've applied it to my life in ways that you can apply it to yours. It's going to be out Father's Day. So that's June the 16th. And it's available now for pre-order. You save $5 if you order it now.
Come on.
Yeah.
Promo code Joe Teel. No, I'm playing. I'm playing.
Yeah, but you can get that at my website at DerekJMurphy.com. That's DerekJMurphy.com.
Come on.
Yes, sir.
Man, I definitely appreciate you coming on the show. I had a good time. This is fun.
Yes,
I'm going to have you back. We got more talking to do.
Come back.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
But this has been another episode, 180 Creator Interview. I'm your host, Joe Teel. Like, share, subscribe, do all that cool stuff. Hit the bell. It'll let you know when all the videos drop. And if you hung in there with us this whole time, we definitely appreciate you. And stay blessed. You have a great day.
Yes, sir.